Hi, this is Nicole. Welcome to Listen to the Stars. Today I have a very special guest, my teacher, Ernst Wilhelm, who is going to be speaking about the Cards of Truth system and introducing it. So thank you so much for being here today. It's really great.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me come over, and thanks for calling me your teacher, because I know you've had lots of teachers, starting with yourself, that you're one of those people who's managed to learn so much on your own. And that's why I love to see in people who can learn by themselves. That's always so important.
Well, thank you. I feel like I've been learning by myself for so long that I'm grateful to finally find someone who has figured out a bunch of stuff that I've always wanted to figure out. You know what I mean?
Well, it'll give you time to figure out other things then.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, I wanted to have you on today because I've started using the Cards of Truth system, which I just think is a phenomenal system of healing, and that kind of describes life in its entirety and how to live basically like a successful and healthy life. And people are really familiar with tarot cards. People know about tarot cards. You can buy them in places like Urban Outfitters now. Anybody can buy a deck. But what people don't realize is that more people in the US and probably around the world own another deck of cards that could even be more powerful than the tarot card deck and more magical, and that's just a normal playing card deck. Yeah. With another name, it's called the Cards of Truth. So I have actually a lot of questions for you, but I'm just curious to know how you even found the Cards of Truth system. What is it? Why should people even be interested in the Cards of Truth? So if you want to start with that.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. So when I was a kid, I was really heavily into magic between the age of 10 and 12. And I learned these professional level magic tricks from these big old, 2-3 inch thick magic books. I made magic props, and I learned card tricks and all kinds of tricks. And I made all my own props. It was all, homemade stuff. Then my sister went to Europe, and she was there for the summer. She came back and she bought me this magic kit. And now I had all these dumb props, and I didn't really like them because they're those cheesy little props. Anyone can know it's a little prop, Yeah. Whereas most of my magic tricks were done with real things. So I could be at a restaurant, I can be somewhere, and I can just whip out some stuff and do some magic tricks, right? Then there's a couple of very elaborate kind of props that you can't really buy. So in this magic kit was this beautiful deck of cards. And in Europe, especially Austria and things like this, if you live there, the cards are so much more attractive than the goofy English playing cards we have in America. And so this deck was so beautiful, I just kept it. And it had a fake card, a prop card on it. And it was like a double card. I ripped off the double magic part, so it'd be a normal playing card. And I just loved the deck, and I kept it, and I kept it, and I kept it. Got into Vedic astrology somehow, started doing real magic, right? Predicting the future. I don't think there's anything more magical we can do than being a reader, right? I mean, we can't time travel, we can't teleport, but we can do clairvoyance and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I ended up being sort of a magician, I think. And I had a student in 97, she started studying with me, who was a really good tarot reader. And then I did a reading for someone, a trade for a woman who wanted a reading. I did astrology reading. She did a card reading. She showed up with playing cards. I'm like, what? You're using playing cards? Why? That's weird. Where are your tarot cards? She said, oh, I like to use these because nobody knows what they mean. Yeah. They're like, it doesn't freak people out. I don't drop the death card on somebody, And she goes, when I used to do tarot, people used to get nervous and not like it. So I, said, oh, cool. I had a good reading with her. And then after, as soon as she left, I called my friend up, and I remembered that old deck, and I've been wanting to use that deck, but I don't really play games, and I suck at poker. So can't make any money out gambling. So I called up my friend, my student. I said, hey, I want you to come over and teach me how to read cards. So she came over, taught me how to do tarot, and I converted over to my playing cards. And I was like, that's lame. And then I went and got into tarot. And then I got into tarot for a really long time. And I was really into tarot. Playing cards were just this weird thing. But then it was so extreme. One time I met a person who was, someone was at the airport when I was flying to India once, and they were trying to learn how to read playing cards from a playing card book. I'm like, and I was actually sitting there on my laptop typing my course manual for my tarot card. And I looked over and there's this person next to me reading playing cards. I said, no, you're doing it all wrong. Come over here, let me teach you how to read tarot cards, you know? So I was just like, playing cards, I would scoff at them. But then as my career, when I was reading charts, I met a person who did something they called Magi astrology. And they claim it was a system of Egyptian astrology. And in this system, they basically take your birth time, and based on, sorry, not your birth time, your birth date. And based on that, you get a birth card. Like you're an 8 of diamonds, right? I'm a 7 of clubs on our birthday. And everyone, depending on the day you're born, you're a playing card. And then based on that, you get a spread of cards with you. So you have a Mars card, a Mercury card, a Venus card. And this person did a reading for me, and it was better than any Vedic astrology reading I'd ever gotten. I was like, what? You did that just that easy? And he really easily, he broke my life into 7-year periods, and he broke them into a year-long period. And every year had 7 52-day windows. And he went through my year, 52 days. This is what's going to happen in this 52 days. It happened. Every 52 days, I was like, wow, that's so cool and so simple. So I became aware of that system, but something bothered me about it. And what bothered me about what they call it's most commonly known as Magi system. Actually, it's most commonly known as Destiny cards by Robert Camp. He's the one who's propagated that system the most. But what bothered me about that system, it only creates 52 types of people. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't add up, and not only that, every year there's 52 types of people, but so someone who was born in 1960 as a 7 of clubs, and me born 1970 as a 7 of clubs, we're going to have, at 45, we're going to have the very same card spread with the same 52-day windows, and the reader is going to tell us the same thing, but we're going to have quite different lives. And that always bothered me about the system, so I didn't get into it. But then I had a friend who was really intuitive and wanted to learn a predictive system. So I said, you need to learn this destiny card system. I said, go get these books by this person and, get into it because you're really intuitive and you don't like to study. It's a simple system. Go learn it. And they didn't really want to. And I said, that sounds like fun. So I went and I bought the books and I got into the system myself. And I started making all these astrological connections and started putting the planets actually into the spread. So now it became very differentiated, where nobody who's the same card in the same year or in a different year has this exact same spread because the planets are in different places. So I took this system and expanded it into a very specific, much more specific, detail-centered system that's much, much more accurate. And a lot of these card readers, they'll say, these are potentials. No, with my system, it's not potentials. It's either going to happen or it's not. And if you say it's not going to happen, it does, is because the reader screwed up and didn't read it right. We take the guesswork out of it by adding the planet. So at that point, I thought, well, geez, this is so cool. Why would I want to cast tarot cards? Because I'm working with these playing card symbols. So I want to keep working with the playing card symbols and cast playing cards. And then I got into casting playing cards. And a lot of things, when we learn tarot, we learn how important the major arcana are. And what they call the major arcana, they call them the keys of the tarot. A lot of the old authors call them the tarot keys. That's what they were called. And that's exactly what I found they are. They're actually keys to understanding all the other cards. So if I see, say, an 8 of diamonds show up, I know the 8 of diamonds is the Hanged Man. Okay, if I see a 7 of clubs show up like me, I know the 7 of clubs is the Falling Tower. So every person is a major arcana. Every time I cast the spread and a card falls down, whatever that card is, a two of diamonds, whatever, if I want to, I can add the key meaning as given by the major arcana. I can add a major arcana meaning to that card. And that's one of the ways I define the meaning of a card. But there's lots of other ways I can define the meaning of the card. You know, I can define it based on its number, its suit value, and all this, but also a major arcana. So every card I cast, I see major arcana. So I realized I didn't like having the major arcana in my deck, because when I cast them with the deck, I didn't like it when the major arcana showed up, because the major arcana only gave me a major arcana meaning. Where if I got a playing card come up, I had the major arcana meaning if I wanted to use it, plus I had the concrete meaning. And it always drove me crazy to try to get the right concrete meaning from major arcana cards. Because people like to be concrete. People like to be concrete, you know? I think it's also fun to sort of, you know, when I cast a spread, lots of times I like to guess the situation. I don't say, ask the question. I say, think about what's going on and cast the cards. And I want to put the cards down and I want to try to guess, you're here about love. Well, that's harder to do if a major arcana comes up. I remember I dropped it, and if the first card that came up to tell me the situation was a major arcana, I'd go, oh no, I'm not going to be able to guess what this event's about, you know, in a concrete way. All I'm going to be able to do is say, you're dealing with this kind of issue, you know, and look sort of washy-washy. And as outcomes, I hated major arcanas as outcomes. The outcome is you have to work out this inner part of your life. No, I want a concrete outcome. This is what's going to happen. My playing card tells it to me. And now that we know the concrete outcome, let's add the major arcana answer to that as well and see what's happening inside of you. So it's just, I think I can do so much more with it, and it's just can go so deep. So that's how I got into it in a very, very long nutshell.
Yeah, I remember when we first talked about the cards, you were like, oh yeah, you know, you don't even need major arcana. And I was kind of like, I was like, what? Who is this guy? And then as I learned the system and the way that they, you know, the major arcana relate to the regular cards in the deck, it's just amazing. And it makes so much sense. And I've actually been using the birth card system a lot, at least in my own life. So I always check, and everyone else will figure this out too. If you ever get a card reading, or if you have Kala, you can check out the software. You can see the cards that are running for your year and for your day and for your week. And I think there's like a 7-year spread or something like that.
Yeah, we also have that for free now at cardsoftruth.com.
Yeah, so you can check it out now.
Online, cardsoftruth.com, and get their spread with all the planets in it, all their cards in it.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to do is like when something happens during my day, and you can see like the exact time window in like the weekly spread or the daily spread. Or in the daily spread, you can see the time window. I see what card was running at the time that was happening. And when you have those major arcana meanings as well, it's just, it's so crazy. And then you can compare that, because say that card was an important card in your birth spread, then you know that that was a really important event that happened. And say that card was also a really important card in your year spread, then you can, you know, kind of like weigh the importance of the situation, and it's pretty amazing. So,
and what's also nice to do, one of the hard things with tarot or card reading when you cast cards is timing the event. So you get an outcome card and say it's a good outcome, but when's it going to be? With the birth card system of the cards of truth, what they call the destiny cards, we can time things. And we also lots of times can time things that come up in spreads. So let's say I cast a spread and the outcome is the Queen of Diamonds. And I know the person has a Queen of Diamonds coming up in 2 months in their birth spread, and that's their 52-day card is the Queen of Diamonds. I can say, hey, it's going to happen in that 52-day period. And so we can time things really nicely too.
Yeah, and I've actually already found that to be true just from working with it for not even any percentage of time compared to you. I can already see that it works. So it's amazing. One of the questions I had was, like, how do you, I don't know if you can briefly describe how you calculate the birth card system, or like how do you even arrive at that system? So you already
Okay.
said that like the Magi card system was basically like one card
Per day.
per day. So yeah, how do you come up with the
Okay.
calculations?
Basically, there's a card assigned to every day based on the first day of the year, January 1st. So January 1st is the King of Spades. Then January 2nd is the Queen of Spades. January 3rd is the Jack of Spades. And we keep doing that till we get to the Ace of Spades. Okay. After that, we go to diamonds in the same order. Is it diamonds?
Well, normally you go from
Uh,
spades to hearts to clubs to diamonds.
yes, yes.
I've been
Then it
studying.
goes to hearts. Then it goes to, actually, I'm getting backwards here. It actually, after that, you get the, I should know this off the top of my head, but it's been so long since I've done it in my head. I'll have to look it up. I think it goes in reverse. It goes to diamonds, to clubs, and then hearts.
Okay. I mean,
Well, no, it doesn't. That's why I'm confused. Okay. What it is you basically, it goes through to the Ace of Diamonds, but then it changes in different ways depending on what the month is, because every day has what's called a solar value. Okay. And based on the day of the year, a day has a solar value. So January 1st has a certain solar value, and that's assigned to the solar value of the card. The solar values of the cards start with the Ace of Hearts having a solar value of 1, going through the King of Hearts, which has a solar value of 13. Okay.
Okay.
Then after that, we start with the clubs having the solar value of Ace of Clubs has a solar value of 14.
Okay.
And that goes to 26. And then from 27 to 39, we go into the solar values of the diamonds. And then the last 13 solar values, all from basically 39 to 52, or I'm sorry, 40 to 52, is the spades. So the King of Spades has a solar value of 52.
Okay.
Okay. So the first day of the year has a solar value of 52. The second day of the year has a solar value of 51, and so on. And at the end of the month, it doesn't shift automatically, it changes. So the first 13 days of the year are King of Spades to Ace of Spades. But after that, it starts jumping around more. And every month, there is a synchronicity of a chain of a suit every month, but every month it changes. At the beginning of every month, it changes. So it's basically based on the numerology of the day.
Okay.
Okay, which creates a number for that day, between a solar number of the day between 1 and 52. And then we equate that to the solar value of the card, with the Ace of Hearts having a solar value of 1 and the King of Spades having a solar value of 52.
Okay. And I mean, what is the solar value?
The solar value is just considered to be the time energy of the day. So it's based on time. It's kind of a more time-based system. Chinese astrology, people are familiar with that, is very much a time-based system. So we have different ways of keeping time. And the solar value is just the time stamp of the day. So when you're born under a King of Spades day, it means you're born under the time of the King of Spades. What that means is that day, it's the King of Spades' turn to play on the board. So like when you play a game, first it's my turn, and then it's the person's turn over here, and it goes around the table, right? And that's exactly how this works, is that every card gets to play his turn for one day. So everything that happens that day, it's because that card, that energy, whatever you want to call it, that deity of the card is saying, okay, it's my turn. What am I going to do,
Okay.
And so each of the cards, based on their nature, plays the game of life a certain way. And as they play the game of life, and the play revolves to the right, goes to the King of Spades, to the Queen of Spades, whatever. it goes on. But what's interesting, the King of Spades only comes up once a year. January 1st is the only time the King of Spades runs the show. The only people who are King of Spades people are people who are born on January 1st. The King of Clubs happens like 9 times a year, though. So you'll meet a lot of King of Clubs. A lot of events happen because the King of Clubs. He's very busy, but the King of Spades shows up once a year, you know?
Wow.
So all the cards don't show up equally. Queen of Spades comes up once a year, and Ace of Hearts only comes up, I think, once a year, too. I used to have all that memorized. It's all my courses if I made a mistake on how many times those cards come up. But it's
Wow.
sort of interesting. So that's how it happens.
Well, and that's fascinating to me because the King of Spades is kind of like one of the yogi cards.
Yeah.
So it's like someone that can really, it's like the hermit. It's like someone that can really spend a lot of time alone and developing themselves. So you actually don't really meet that many people like that in real life
Yeah,
either.
it's a rare card. It is. It's rare, and it's also the planet of complete and utter dissolution or destruction. And so, yeah, and not just not just your house blowing down, but I'm talking complete annihilation.
Yeah.
And in our lives, yes, all the time things go wrong and things break and we get a new car. But how often does something happen where we never drive again? That's like an utter destruction of driving. Having an accident and buying a new car next week is just kind of this little bump in the road of driving. The King of Spades, he's this card of, all right, we're going to absolutely finish this off, and those things just don't happen very often, thank God.
Yeah, really.
Now, sometimes it feels like they happen every day, I know.
Yeah, no, and I have a King of Spades as my sun card, so now I'm like feeling some fear.
Yes, you get to have the King of Spades for the first 52 years of your life. So
Yeah.
that sun card is something that sort of is a kind of a guiding thing for the first 52 years.
But it kind of makes sense because I've always been the type of person that wants to like spend a lot of time alone.
Yeah.
Like I can't do I will just spend years alone if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, okay, so you've done a really good job of describing like how you got into it, but I'm still curious when you were developing this system, like are you developing it off of like reference texts or
Okay,
like
good
what
question.
is like what's the you call it the little book and everything, but is there actually like a book or
Okay, what it is, a guy in the late 1800s who was the head of some secret brotherhood decided to go public and write a method of casting cards. Okay, and in that method of casting cards, he taught a spread where we use 52 cards. We use the whole deck in the spread. So you lay out the whole deck in a certain pattern. And in that book, he also gave the solar values of the cards. Like the Ace of Hearts has a solar value of 1, King of Hearts has a solar value of 13. And then he talked about a lot of numerological principles, such as how to calculate the solar value of the day. Okay, and it's a very complicated book, and that's all it was. And the only thing he taught how to do was how to cast the cards. But then people took the principles of this book and slowly started developing this system. And so they used the value of the birthday as given by this book and the solar value of the card, say this is your birth card. And another thing that we do that they taught in this book is something called quadration, which basically the deck is laid out in a normal order. There's a normal way that creation works, a manifest creation, okay? And that is from spades to hearts to clubs to diamonds, okay? So from Ace of Spades to King of Spades, and then from Ace of Hearts to King of Hearts, from Ace of Clubs to King of Clubs, Ace of Diamonds to King of Diamonds, and then back to the Ace of Spades. That's the cycle, the divine law of how creation is manifested and continues itself. But life doesn't happen in a linear way like that. Life happens in what appears a chaotic and random way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But life works scientifically. And that's the beauty of the system. It shows us how scientifically life works. Life works we're alive because of scientific reasons, right? And those are divine laws, that's science. So we first arrange the deck in that order. That's the order the deck is in naturally. So if it was like in a bound book, that would be the order a card or deck would be in. But the reason the book, that's a deck of cards, is not a bound book is because after you lay it out in that order of scientific perfection of how creation manifests itself, we pick the cards up in a certain way, manipulate them in a very specific way, and do what's called a quadration. And then after that quadration, we get a whole new spread, a whole new 52 card spread, where cards are not in any order that looks apparent. They're just kind of chaotic all over the place, just like life. And somewhere in that spread of 52 cards will be your birth card. And that shows where you live in this random, chaotic order. But there's nothing random about it, because it's based on a scientific arrangement that has been quadrated in a very specific scientific way, based on the seasons and the elements, okay? And then that spread that we get there is going to show you in this world all your life and for your first year of life. Then we quadrate the deck again, and now we get the spread for your second year of life. And then we quadrate the deck again and get the spread for your third year of life. And every spread seems like a random, cards were just tossed in some random order, but they're not. It's all perfectly scientific. So that book also taught these things. So people took that and started developing it. In the 70s, a guy named Arne Lean, I think was his last name, became famous with this system because he predicted to a sports magazine that the United States Olympic team, the tennis team, which was supposed to win every medal, was not going to do, 1980 Olympic team, I think, was not going to do very good. He said, I didn't understand why, but everyone is showing nothing good. He goes, but it's strange because it doesn't look like they're really losing either. This is strange. What happened? We boycotted the Olympics that year. So the US team didn't go to the Olympics and didn't win any medals, but didn't really lose medals either. But it was bad stuff. I mean, not going to the Olympics is a huge disappointment. And he saw that, but he didn't see them like getting beaten to the ground by the Russians or something. So that was in this magazine. And so all of a sudden people go, what is the system he used? And it became popular. Afterwards, other people started to develop the system. The most popular person is Robert Camp. There's been 2 or 3 other quite prominent people who've developed the system. But I had a problem with all their systems in that and I had a problem with the original book too. And a lot of these secret societies, the so-called secret societies, these brotherhoods, they like to act like they were handing down knowledge and tradition from thousands of years ago, but they weren't. It's all bullshit. They were just doing the best they can in a Christian world where having the wrong book could have got you killed at certain times. You know, in a world where most of the literature was destroyed. The only continuation of any traditional knowledge is in India when it comes to the occult, and the Chinese. But in India, it's better because more Sanskrit texts have survived on astrology and astrological systems in India than the entire rest of the world combined. I'm talking hundreds of times more. And so from India, we have all these Sanskrit books of older knowledge, stuff that these guys, they weren't even available to these guys. So they would do their best with the paltry tools they had left over. But the minute I started looking at their system, I was like, that's not right, that's not right, this needs to be this needs to be this. Like for instance, they would use the planets Mercury first, then Venus, then Mars, then Jupiter, and then Saturn. And then Neptune and Uranus, or Uranus and Neptune. And then they didn't use Pluto in this first old book, this from the 1800s. If you use Neptune, Uranus, you need to add Pluto. And that's as far as they would go. And then after that, different people who try to develop the system would, after Uranus would come up with different planets. They would make things up, cosmic moon card, Plutonian outer space wacko card. I mean, they come up with all these things that weren't in astrology anymore. And I was like, no, that's not how it works. We don't need that because we have the right astrology things. And so different people try to develop this system in very different ways. Arnie kept it simple. He's pretty much stopped at Neptune, like the first book said.
Mm-hmm.
Then all these other people came with all this weird stuff. But in Vedic astrology, every Vedic astrologer knows the planets are Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu.
Mm-hmm.
There's 9. So from our basics of Vedic astrology, we already went 2 steps better than they did in the right order. So all these holes showed up to me. And then I added the planets, where I actually calculated the planets and added them to the birth spread. So let's say your Mars card say like you have a King of Spades Sun card.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a person who's going to spend a lot of time as a hermit, alone, thinking and going deep into things that are important to them. And a King of Spades, all spades are about the self. So a person with the King of Spades there is going to be self-invested, trying to discover themselves. Everything that happens to them, they're going to be thinking, how does this impact who I am? And that's the constant question with King of Spades. And so, but one person in that King of Spades might have the moon in that card. Another person might have Venus there. Another person might have Saturn, Mars, and Rahu there and kill themselves when they're 12 because they're just in so much pain discovering themselves that it's so painful they can't survive. So when we add the planets, we really start seeing the differences of how that card is being handled. King of Spades, first 52 years of your life is going to be kind of tough, because King of Spades is the ego bashing. It says, all right, the first 52 years of your life, we're going to take your ego out on every level you can imagine. Well, if you got Saturn, Mars, and Rahu there, you're not going to handle it. You're going to commit suicide and kill the ego the easy way by shooting it.
Yeah.
But another person who had Jupiter there would be going, wow, I love this. And they're happy the whole time. Another person with nothing there gets beat down and crawls out of the grave and gets beat down again and crawls out of the grave. And you can't kill them, but life doesn't work either. And so they get all these varieties on how the King of Spades is going to act on somebody as it destroys their ego.
Yeah.
And we only can do that when we add the planets to the system. And so that's what I've done. I've added the planets to the system, but also I've reorganized the whole order of the cards, where the first card is the Sun card. The second card is the Moon card. I've added Rahu and Ketu, the North and South nodes of the Moon card. Added the ecliptic card. I added Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto cards where they belong at the end, because they're way out there, right?
Yeah.
So it's very scientific, and it's just based on my knowledge of astrology, because it is an astrology system. And thanks to all the stored knowledge of India that hasn't been burnt down at the stake, it was just really easy to piece this system together. And by really easy, I mean easier than anyone else had it, because no one else had the background of 20-some years of Vedic astrology. But it was still hard. Like I worked with the system for a while, and then I had this huge crisis, and I realized I had made a few mistakes. I was like, but when you make a few mistakes at the beginning, though, it means everything on top of that is skewed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to redo the whole system at one point. So it wasn't like it was like, okay, I'm done. But it was like a continuous effort of discovering these principles and how they work.
That kind of makes me think of your birth card too.
Yeah.
Like being the 7 of clubs and being like, oh, I finally did it.
Yeah, I know.
I figured it out.
Yeah, so the 7 of clubs, black 7, 7 of clubs, or 7 of spades for people who haven't heard of the system, is the falling tower. Like in the tarot, the falling tower. The falling tower is like, yes, the tower, that's what I want. Safety, security, this is it. Then you get there and you walk in, and then the tower crumbles and falls on top of you. And so that's someone like me, a 7 of clubs. That's my life, basically. I was born when way I play the game is, way the 7 of clubs plays my life, sets me up for failure. And anytime I think this is it, no, it's going to be proven wrong. So, but it's the attitude with it. 7 of clubs knows it's right when it doesn't go, this is it. 7 of clubs knows, okay, this is what it's going to be. But anytime it's an invested thing, the tower comes tumbling down. Anyway, because I think I got a little distracted there. I wasn't really ready to talk about that, but I want to clarify that since I got into it. Sorry, I didn't really even want to, but all sevens are when we invest the ego. If we invest the ego in something, we're proven wrong, or it doesn't work out, or we get hurt. The red sevens do that through the death card by causing us to have an actual loss of something. The black sevens do it by the thing we want to depend on, the thing we want to be dependable, proven itself not dependable. Okay? And so people who've got black sevens, they're always going to push the envelope. So say you have an airplane, or let's take a rock. Yeah, let's take an airplane. And you say, okay, this airplane has been proven dependent at 20,000 feet. Everyone is going to coast that airplane at 20,000 feet. But the black seven people, the seven of clubs and seven of spades people, they're going to say, I'm going to take this baby up to 24,000 and see what happens. And so that's what I do with astrology. I learn a technique and go, wow, this technique works. And that's where most astrologers stop. But the good old seven of clubs says, I'm going to take this technique up to 24,000 feet and see if it blows, you know? And it's just a matter of time before you take any technique to a certain point where it's going to blow, right? And so that's, some black sevens push the envelope.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things is that I know another seven of clubs. And so when I first started learning the cards of truth system, I was like, no, this can't be right. Like, this doesn't make sense. Ernst is nothing like this other person that I know that's a seven of clubs. And that's where I realized that the planetary associations and seeing which planets are in each card, and also you can actually look at the avashtas of the planets in the cards, and then that just, like, you know, you can go so deep with it. So it's not a simplistic thing. You can kind of like look at it on a superficial level, or you can actually learn more about the astrology behind it and take it deeper as far as like the birth card system, because casting cards is.
And even when we add the planets, it's still a simple system.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a system that's going to take a person 10 years to learn the kind of like Vedic astrology.
Yeah.
Even with all the planets added, it's such a simple system. It's like, wow. And it's so easy. And honestly, most of the times, right these days, because I'm really working with medical astrology, a lot of times people have little concerns, and I kind of tackle those really quickly on email. I almost always just do those with the card system because it's faster and easier. I don't have to look, it's faster for me. It's simpler. I can be tired and do it, you know? So it's such a great system to learn for people who want to learn to predict, learn to read a person. The compatibility system I developed with the system, I like it better than any other compatibility system I've done. It's like, it just works better. And by working better, it gives me more concrete details. It gives me more of the concrete stuff I need to just say, the reason it's not working is you guys can never get your material lives together. And so even though you're emotionally connected, your material life is always falling apart. And you can't, a marriage is a material thing. It can't be falling, you can't be tripping over each other every time you go out the door to go to work, you know? And so it's just such an accurate system. And it's really great for seeing, okay, well, these people have the connections where they would actually fit together as partners. Or, oh no, these people would never be marriage partners. It's just better to do, it works better for that than any other system I've done. So it's my favorite system of compatibility now, which really, really shocked me because I love doing Vedic relationship compatibility.
Yeah.
And this is better.
Yeah, and it's amazing too. And if you already know Vedic astrology, and I've seen you do this, is you can combine both. So like if you see something going on with the transits, like a health transit, you can also like verify, and it just adds like another layer of confluence to the readings too. So even if you didn't want to just rely 100% on cards, you can combine things. And it's really nice.
And you should always, unless you just get a really strong, aha, I know this is it. Usually when we do predictions, we see it and we're like, oh, but am I sure? And then we always like to look towards confluence. Even in Vedic astrology, we'll use different techniques to try to get confluence, try to do it. Most actually successful Vedic astrologers, anything they predict, they'll try with 3 different techniques. If they can get 2 of the 3 to work out, they'll be pretty sure, confident. but they're hoping to get all three to line up. But this is just another way to line it up. And it is astrology. It's just learning a little bit extra on the cards. And that once you learn that little extra, the cool thing is you can cast cards. Wherever you are, you can cast cards. You don't need your computer. Remember once I was out with my wife somewhere and something came up, we had to figure some things out, and we just went to a liquor store. Oh, there's a liquor store. We went over there, bought a deck of cards, cast a deck of cards, had our answer. So, you know, you can always do it. Even if the power goes out, even if we have a solar flare, no electricity, we can always cast cards.
Yeah, that is a really nice thing about it, because trying to always have your laptop to build a chart or spending hours making one by hand, it's not really that easy. Okay, well, do you have anything else you'd like to add about the cards? Or I'm trying to think if there's any common questions that might come up. But I think one thing we didn't talk about in this video is a lot of people are familiar with tarot. So are there just some quick comparisons you can make between tarot and the Cards of Truth system?
Okay, the way I look at the Cards of Truth is it's a book of knowledge that can be used as an oracle. And it's written in universal symbols. And those symbols are symbols of nature. Okay, so spades are actually trees. Hearts are fruit, clubs are the leaves on the tree, and the diamonds are the crystalline structures that build up the crust of the earth that the tree grows on. That's what we're really looking at with the deck of cards. We're looking at symbols of nature. And symbols of nature are always going to exist. Tarot came in later. Tarot became strong during the Renaissance. I think what happened with Tarot is they took the playing cards and they created symbols of civilization. Coins, swords, cups.
And the batons.
And rods or batons, right? Those are symbols of civilization. You know, in 50 years, no one might know what a coin is, right? I mean, we're heading that way already, that we won't know what coins is one day. A lot of, 2,000 years ago in India, they used seashells.
Yeah.
So if a person from 2,000 years ago got transported to modern day world and got a deck of tarot cards, and they saw this little disc of metal on one of the tarot cards, they would have no relevance to them at all. No matter how much they studied that deck, they couldn't understand the wisdom in it, because those symbols are relevant to a certain civilization. If you remember The Gods Must Be Crazy, right? That movie, and most people have seen it. If not, you need to see it.
Yeah, I have to see it.
A Coke bottle falls out of the sky and hits an Aborigine, a little pygmy in Africa, on the head. And this is like this magical glass bottle. They've never seen a glass bottle. They've never had a container to hold water. Why? Because there's no water to be held. It's an absolute desert there,
Yeah.
And so the way they drink is they will get a root, and they'll shave it, and then they'll take the shavings and they'll squeeze it in a way that the juice runs down their thumb right into their mouth, like that. They've never seen a cup, a container. So if they got a tarot deck, if a tarot deck fell out of the airplane and hit them on the head, and they looked at it, and they saw a coin and a cup on it, it wouldn't mean anything to them. So tarot card is limited in its scope. Whereas playing deck card, if you look at a playing card and you look at it, you go, yeah, that looks like a strawberry or an apple. It looks like a piece of fruit. This looks like a tree. This looks like that quartz crystal I stepped on when I was barefooting it the other day. Whatever. Those are actually things that will always exist on planet Earth. So at any time in history, by any culture, if somebody got a playing card deck, just somehow it magically appeared, even with no knowledge, if they just took that deck and laid it out and played with it, they would arrive at the Card of Truth system in time. Okay? And they could define the wisdom, they could understand the wisdom of that 52-page book. With the tarot deck, sure, we could do it in Renaissance Europe. We could do it now. I don't know if we'll be able to do it in 100 years, unless we tell them how to do it, because in 100 years, we're going to have to have credit cards on our tarot decks, right? And swords, who uses swords? Instead of swords, know what we'd have? Lawyers.
Yeah.
Now we need lawyers. We need a suit of lawyers, a suit of credit cards. Those are the modern symbols of how we deal with disputes as lawyers. How we deal with finances is credit cards. And I don't know what we would do for batons or rods anymore. I guess we would use our air conditioning. I don't know, wind, a fan, because that's the air element. So these symbols are hardly relevant now. I mean, I always tell people who do tarot, I said, oh, when was the last time you saw a sword? No, I'll say, when was the last time you did sword cuts? I have never used a sword. Oh, when was the last time you saw a sword? Oh, I never saw a sword. Oh, so you can identify with the symbol? Yeah, I saw a bunch of Kung Fu movies. I saw, Deadlands or something, saw some Kung Fu movie. And that's the only identification with it. And if you don't like Kung Fu movies, you don't even get that. So really, the beauty of the cards of truth is it's a universal symbol for all time and all cultures. Whereas tarot deck only applies really to the culture who created it. And what's even worse, in modern tarot decks, they've made them more cultural. They've decided tarot comes from Egypt. They have no clue where tarot comes from. And they say, so let's put a bunch of Egyptian symbols. Let's put the Sphinx on it. And let's put all this Egyptian junk. Let's put an Ankh on it. All these Egyptian symbols that, what does the Sphinx mean? We don't even know what the Sphinx means. The people who know what the Sphinx means died like 12,000 years ago or something. So why should we have these symbols that aren't even part of our reality there? We shouldn't. The only symbols that will always be part of our reality is symbols of nature, of growing, thriving nature.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest difference. They're pure and they'll always work. And now we just need artists to come up and make some sexy decks for us. And my wife is working on a deck. I have a student who completed a very colorful abstract deck. So so people who don't want to read with dry playing cards, there's more options now. And I read with an old 1860s deck, actually. Any deck where you get the king standing upright instead of being double-headed will work. And you can find lots of cool decks that do that. So any deck that does that, you can find a lot of neat things.
Yeah, because you want to be able to read the face cards reversed.
Yeah, you want to read them reversed upside down. So if they have heads on both sides, you don't get to do that. A lot of card readers do it that way. I personally like to read them upside down. So I like a deck where I can see my face cards upside down.
Yeah. Okay, so wonderful. I think that really answers that question.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to add about the system or the cards.
No, the only thing I have to say is if people want to learn the system, to go to cardsoftruth.com. And if people want to get a reading with the system, to go to nicolebrenny.com.
Thank you. Yes, I really do enjoy reading with the cards. And it's thanks to you that I know how to. So thank you for teaching me. And it's really been wonderful.
My pleasure. You take care.
But the other thing before you go, he also has the chart calculator that I think or not the chart calculator, but the birth card calculator, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to include that link. I think we mentioned it earlier in this video. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on my channel.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
You too.
I can't help but see it's a sickness.